Is Dr. Messerli with us today from Washington? And Jelica?
I'm here.
Good morning, Hannah. Hannah, you're muted. Jelica, could you turn your camera on, please? We can't see you.
Yeah, is it okay now?
Baja, is the issue from my side, or I can't see Jelica?
Is it better now?
Yes, I can see you now. Excellent. I see somebody's email.
Okay, I'm scared to push anything, so I will damage. So it's better to stay like this.
I'm scared too, so I see my hands are here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Hannah, good morning to you. I know it's really early morning.
I'm going to watch the sunrise as we have this presentation. How's that?
Yeah, sorry to wake you up so early. Hannah's
coming. I've been told I've been in the dark before, but this is really stretching it. So thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Well, thank you. At least you know, we kept you till the end. So we kept the best to last, but at the same time, hopefully it's not as abusive as waking you up early morning. Well, it is early morning, but middle of the night. But I'd like to, leading this session is Ms. Jelica Grujić. She is the head of the tourism sector within the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations. She has long experience with the ministry. She started with the ministry several years ago. She left. She went to the Investment Promotion Agency. She's recognized as a promoter for investment, domestic and foreign. She has a wonderful reputation and as a doer, as a results-oriented executive. And now she's back in Malta looking after tourism full-time. And that's a great asset to have somebody like Jelica focused on tourism and work as a facilitator of all of the activities between the two entity ministries and vertical districts and a number of other stakeholders like chambers and otherwise. So Jelica, I'm going to leave this session in your good hands to lead us into this. And Dr. Messerli is a dear friend. We happen to be also neighbors. Our offices are just a couple 100 meters away. She's at the World Bank and the International Finance Corporation. And both of us happen to have offices nearby the White House. We take our salad to the park across the street. You know, we have a lunch hour when the weather is nice. But over to you, Jelica, to lead this session. It should be quite exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ibrahim, so much. I think that technically everything is okay, so we can start here. Well, I will start with, of course, thank you for a kind introduction. As I can see, you read my CV and all details about that, and thank you very much for that. Thank you for leading us through this 2 days webinar, and I think that it is very, very useful for all of us. And of course, thank you for leading us through this project, and thank you for future cooperation in this project. Now we will return back to our item agenda, and now we will speak about the tourism enterprise resilience in a post-COVID era. So when I read this title of this session, actually I started to thinking that whatever we are talking now, especially from the economic point of view, we are talking about the period pre-COVID period and of course post-COVID period. So, and yesterday and today actually we heard a lot of presentations and had very good discussions about the latest development in tourism sector generally and about the tourism situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And what we actually can conclude is that that COVID-19 or pandemic actually affected all economies all around the world, and they affected them on different ways and different degrees. So depending on that, actually each economy will react differently. The reaction actually will be based on their analysis, on their research, on their funds, on the managerial skills, or all other situation within one economy. So the economies actually will prepare their own scenarios and strategies for recovery. During the previous session, somewhere in comments on an audience from I read that they commented especially about the about the measures and about the reactions and plans of each economy that need to be based on reliable documents. So talking from the point of the public institutions, actually it is very, very important to have the reliable documents, to have good expertise, studies, and recommendations, and based on that documents actually to create concrete actions and concrete scenarios for recovery. In that context, and actually what we are going to focus on that during this session is World Bank Group activities. We all know that World Bank Group has huge activities all around the world, working different activities with a huge actually experience in conducting different research and different analyses. And one of the analyses that they prepared during this COVID period is that they actually just finalized the detailed study on challenges and opportunities facing the tourism industry in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I already had an opportunity to see that document. I really think that it is extremely valuable document with very good diagnosis, expertise, recommendations, and really comprehensive document that will be very, very useful for both public and private sector. So this document actually gives us some important guidelines how to manage crises and mitigate the impact, and actually how to provide stimulus and accelerate recovery, and how to prepare for the future. I will not talk a lot about that document today. With us is one of the co-author of that document, the person with a huge experience. Let me introduce Dr. Hanna Messerli. She is a senior private specialist, World Bank Group, and she is an expert in tourism development with a huge experience in heritage and nature-based tourism development in local, regional, and national level. So it is really very, very good to have her with us today. And actually in the following presentation, she will present us main findings from that document that they prepared. Dr. Hannah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ibrahim, I understand you folks are going to move the slides. Is that correct? Perfect. Perfect. Let's just stop for a moment. We've all just been inspired by all those incredible pictures and amazing sites and invitation to experience adventure tourism. To do that means you got to have a lot of good health, get those strong muscles going, and to have lots of energy and motivation. And as you climb hills or raft along the different rivers, you need resilience. And in fact, that's what we're here to talk about right now, is resilience for this very important sector, and specifically the tourism enterprises in the sector. As was just mentioned, thank you, next slide. The World Bank is in the process of finalizing this important new document on opportunities and challenges for sector excellence. The World Bank and IFC, what is it that we do? We really work with analytics, data, and policy to provide insights into specific sectors. And these really utilize rigorous analysis and draw on global policy and activities. We conducted this study in order to enable all of the respective stakeholders to get a clearer picture of what the potential for the sector is and how to define a strategic strategy. Now, the USAID project is working with all of you in this regard, and we hope that this analysis will inform some of the activities that you have that you take going forward. And also, as part of this research, our team has been supporting the Federation of BIH Ministry of Environment and Tourism in reviewing and enhancing the overall legal framework for the sector to enable a better business environment. Beyond its core business in financing investment projects, IFC in particular has a significant advisory portfolio working with different sectors, particularly in BIH over the past 15 years, supporting different authorities in their attempts to improve the business environment. That's really what the International Finance Corporation is about. At the same time, the World Bank Group works with governments on a number of different projects across infrastructure, environment, and certainly tourism. So through target assistance at all levels of governments, we focus on regulatory reform, access to finance, sector-specific interventions, and investment policy and promotion. And all of those come into this report and the discussions that we present to both analyze and also consider the path forward. So let's take a look at the report. Next slide, please. Excuse me. How do we do this diagnostic? And you will all receive it in February. February is the launch date. So today, Ibrahim twisted my arm and said, okay, come on, give us the sneak preview. So I just want to touch on a few insights that we found and hope that they will generate more dialogue and discussion, as has already started through this whole program yesterday and today. We considered a number of different areas, including supply and demand. What is the situation? And as has been said, a number of the challenges in the sector have been really brought to the forefront through the COVID crisis. And so we've looked at both those that were before the crisis as well as some that are related to the impact of the crisis, and considered a little bit of competitive benchmarking. So looking at how BIH is doing with respect to some of the neighbors in the region and beyond, because I think what we really have here in BIH is the opportunity to really grow a globally recognized and in-demand tourism offering. So to do that, we need to think about change. We need to think about drivers of that change, the way forward, and some of the specific activities. Next slide. So we know that, we know that it's a somewhat complicated environment in BIH with regard to the different organizations and those that are involved with policy. So this is the, as we call it, the tourism ecosystem. And we reached out to and engaged with many of these stakeholders in order to really understand and bring together their ideas and thoughts on the sector. So, and we even talked to tourists. So we covered the public sector, the private sector, and certainly even tourists, because they are very much part of the equation. So let's take a quick snapshot or look at a snapshot of this sector at a glance. And what we see here, pardon me, I have a little bit of a sore throat this morning. The top slide is international arrivals growth. And this is the growth in arrivals from one year to the next. And you can see it's a bit of a bouncing ball. The red line shows the comparison of BIH to Southern Mediterranean Europe region. And really, in the end, there are some opportunities here. Consistency of growth is important, absolutely, but it's not just about growth. And one of the key takeaways from this crisis is that there's been a shift from just thinking about the numbers of heads and beds and bodies and seats and buses to saying, what is it that really will both support government, culture, environment, the social fabric of our countries that are involved with tourism in over the long term, not just about who's got the most visitors and how much they've spent. Employment is certainly a key area. And what we see here is that in 2018, we had an estimate of 26,800 people that worked in the tourism sector in BIH, with about 20%, that's the blue slice of the pie, working in the accommodation area. Ongoing or national statistics show that it's potentially a higher number of as many as 40,000. This is one of the challenges we have in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that the collection of data as it relates to performance of the sector has some opportunities for improvement, and certainly better use of technology can improve that over time, and we look to supporting that. 50%, by the way, of the employees in the sector are women. We know that tourism is the sector globally that has a higher percentage of women than many other sectors, and we're proud of that, and I think it provides a tremendous opportunity in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And by the way, on the right, we see a nice steady incline as it relates to the financial amount of the export of travel services over the last 5 years, as provided by the central bank. So let's talk about the size of tourism firms. You know, as we look at this, this is a pretty surprising table that we put together through this analysis, which shows what a concentration we have of small firms in BIH in tourism. And what that tells us is that's where we need to focus. To have real resilience, we need to focus on those small operators that really have that are really hosting the bulk of activity as it relates to tourism in the country. Next slide. So foreign direct investment, FDI, is a key area for many countries to develop their tourism sector. And that's money coming into the country through investments that can be focused on the sector. Here we have a comparative chart which shows BIH in that over in the left lower area compared to a number of your neighboring countries. And despite the sector's potential in BIH, tourism share in the overall foreign direct investment is quite low. So this is tourism FDI. And since 2015, we show the numbers, we have the numbers that show that it's been dropping. Now, this is, again, another really important opportunity BIH has. It can attract greenfield tourism investment that will help those smaller firms even to complete a very solid and smooth value chain for the delivery of tourism. And what we see is that over time, this can grow and can really help the sector. Now let's take a look at two maps, and I think you'll find this interesting. This is the overnight stays in registered accommodation, and obviously the colors refer to the concentration or volume of those in terms of registered stays. This is 2019. No surprise, that big green ball on the right. But if you look at where the other red circles are, it gives us an idea of where people are staying. Now, if we take a look at the next slide, we have a contrast with the number of accommodation facilities listed on booking.com by location. Now, we can see that the road that is is going to be key in terms of movement of people across the country or up and down in the country, and the opportunities to grow tourism with that will become very vibrant, I think, over time. But the reason why we chose booking.com here, it's just an indication, but it shows you that there's tremendous opportunities to grow the number of online presence, and Damien Cook talked about that quite a bit yesterday, how important that is. And what this highlights is that if you will, the circles on the previous diagram need to really reflect much more, for instance, on this diagram to show the use of technology to be able to have a presence for those millennial travelers, individual and small groups, to be able to find the various places to stay and book with them and stay with them and tell their friends and many others about it. Next slide, please. So on benchmarking, we mentioned that this report looks at some of the activity of others in your region. This table on the left has a number of indicators. Across the top, we have Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Georgia, Republic of Georgia, North Macedonia, and Slovenia. Population, international arrivals, receipts, employment, percentage of total employment, and then the final indicator is the World Economic Forum Tourism Competitiveness Ranking. This is a globally recognized report that ranks the tourism activities of countries all over the world. And unfortunately, in this case, a lower number, because there's about 130 or 40 countries that are compared, the lower number is not your desire. You want to be in that top 10 over time across those different indicators. However, what we can see is that arrivals in BIH are lower, but what's important here is we also look at the opportunity for growth in international tourism receipts. And good news here, though, also is that there is a percentage of total employment of nearly 10%, and that could grow over time. And there are opportunities here. What this chart really tells you is where there are opportunities to grow and change and to really build your sector back stronger than before. Next slide. So look, we know that COVID-19 has had a global impact on the tourism sector, and we know that it's about hotels and their operations really having some challenges. It's about these online travel agencies that are having to shift and respond to much more emerging data and differences in supply. And bookings increasingly being driven more and more by technology platforms. And I think that Bosnia and Herzegovina is really in a position to leverage that going forward to really benefit from that opportunity. But in the end, you know, what do we really want to know? What we really want to know on kind of a larger basis is what's changed in travel and what's changed, what has stayed the same. I've had a number of conversations recently with economists across the bank, and they'll say to me, oh, you know, we don't have to talk about tourism and travel. That's not going to come back. And I say, that's not the case at all. In fact, if we go on to the next slide, there are, in fact, a number of elements that have changed. Demand is changing, and you've had a great opportunity today and yesterday to really see some of those shifts in demand. The business models are changing, both in terms of on international and corporate levels, as well as even in smaller enterprises. And so that's a change, but they are still operating and will continue to do so. There's greater automation, innovation, and technology. There's, you know, a contactless check-in in some markets will become the norm. And certainly in terms of travel and tourism related enterprise, there's a great deal of difficulty and a tightening of the fiscal space or their ability to operate financially. And we know that the clock is ticking and we have to support them so that we don't lose them. But you know what has not changed? Let's just stop and take a moment here and think about that. People continue to want to travel, and we know that your physical assets are still there. We saw many of them today in terms of some of the slides and video. You know, this isn't like a hurricane has moved through BIH, and so that's great. You know, you got your trees, and they're going to continue to grow. It's not as if you have to really start from below baseline. The need for travel and tourism jobs has never been greater, and I think that there's an emphasis to be able to both grow those jobs, but also grow the different kinds of jobs in travel and tourism. And it's still a people business, and that's good because we can create engagement, build pride, and also really move forward the business environment through tourism. And I think what's most exciting and the greatest opportunity for all of us is that this crisis has emphasized the need for greater environmental and social sustainability. And tourism is one of the #1 sectors that can do that. And so I think that coming out of this crisis, we will be stronger and better and able to really leverage our sector globally and in BIH. So frankly, in the country, what is it that has really been the impact? We've talked about some of the structural deficiencies that we were aware of before COVID that we need to work on even more so. There's been a negative impact on business operations. You've heard about a number of surveys. ISC has done a pulse survey that showed that over 90% of companies in tourism and outside of tourism have been negatively impacted. Liquidity and access to finance are the key constraints for MSMEs, and certainly COVID-19 brings to the forefront the need to really work in a new normal, but to do that through new technologies, innovation, to achieve greater competitiveness. And speaking of surveys, if we look just very briefly, IFC did an enterprise survey in 2019, which highlights that what were the constraints that businesses saw. And right on the top were the political instability and tax rates. And I suspect to some degree that this hasn't changed in 2020 and 2021. But what I think is also important is that we look at that kind of next tier of informal competitors, inadequately educated workforce, tax administration, and even corruption. These are all areas across the business environment that can be addressed and really need to be addressed in order for firms to be more resilient in tourism and all of the firms that are connected to them. So what does it take to become more resilient? You know, simply it's a group effort, and it's a group effort across all 4 of these quadrants. I cannot emphasize enough that when we think about enterprises and their resilience, these are enterprises that in the case of tourism, yes, are focused on tourism, but are in each of these quadrants, whether it's in urban and cultural heritage, transport and infrastructure, even enterprises that support the sector, such as in skills development, digitalization, and then of the environment, national parks. These are all areas where working with enterprises to strengthen them, it takes work in all 4 of these segments. It's not just a laser light targeted activity. So what will help firms the most? Number 1 is improvement, if we go on to the next slide, in the institutional and legal framework, and improving the business environment to ensure a coordinated approach amongst the different public sector stakeholders, and a strategic approach that focuses on the immediate issues, but also thinks a little bit longer term, both medium and longer term. And the work that's being done here is a first step. USAID's leadership here and working with all of you, bringing us all together, is key to improving the overall business environment. And IFC and the World Bank look forward to continuing to work as part of this team of varied stakeholders. Access to finance, as well as improving skills and workforce quality, are key. You're only as good as the last engagement that you've had with your most recent visitor. And in that respect, we know again from what Damien's comments and others' comments yesterday around it's all on the internet, and that sharing the experience will be key, and sharing the experience person to person. And that comes through a skilled workforce and a high quality workforce. And again, providing support to firms for support in innovation and digitalization. This crisis has really speeded up the opportunities here. And we look forward again in IFC and the bank to support those activities. So what really is the way forward? If we look at this last slide, and I want to thank Ibrahim for his leadership and his team's great work. It has been a pleasure to be part of this activity and to be part of the way forward. In the end, this is not about BIH being satisfied with simply getting back to pre-COVID situation. It's really a time to do business as unusual, but as business that is focused on both the immediate, medium, and longer term. And really time to embrace this opportunity to reposition, strategize for recovery, renew products and services in a way that really increases competitiveness. The next time I talk with all of you, I want to see that table on benchmarking look a whole lot different. I want to see BIH leading in the region in terms of numbers of employment, numbers of firms, and really delivering a competitive tourism product. So the way forward is about doing tourism different. It's an opportunity for developing new business models and a time to use all of the tools of the trade working together to be able to create that competitive product that is in demand and is able to be delivered in a way that tourists will come and stay, and not only that, talk more and more about the very, very special place of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much for a very detailed presentation that you delivered now. And we are a little bit beyond the schedule, but of course, I need to comment a little bit, and I have a few questions for you. I hope that we will have time to discuss about that. So looking your presentation, it is really something that we need to underline is that considering this pre-COVID and post-COVID era is that something has been changed. As you said, demand is changing, of course, and business models definitely are changing. But what has not changed is people still want to travel, and physical assets are still there. So we need to take the opportunity of all of that and to, let's say, for the recalibration to grow again and to grow better. So that could be better in this, let's say, as you underline, new normal situation. So when you mentioned before benchmarking and that you need, that you hope that next time when we are talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina, that you hope that we will have better position in benchmarking analysis. So I just want to underline one question. How do you think measurement and benchmarking of tourism sector activity and the resiliency of tourism firms will change after COVID-19? So you said you hope that we will be on a better position. So what do you think, how actually all this situation will have effects on that?
Hey, wait a minute. Nobody said there was going to be tough questions after the presentation. It is a great question, though, and thank you. I think one of the opportunities through this crisis is that there is a greater awareness in terms of measuring and monitoring tourism, that an integrated approach of looking at both impacts on environment, impacts on the social fabric of countries, as well as the economic value of tourism has to be monitored. So really what we have is in some of the new technologies, the opportunities to do that not only better, faster, but also across diverse or dispersed geographic regions. And so I think there'll be an opportunity that this will enable us then to inform small businesses, large businesses, governments, to understand fully the impact of the sector and where there are opportunities going forward. So new tools, again, coming through technology, and also new indicators. And that will enable us to be smarter and more strategic about growing the sector and being more resilient and ready for the next crisis. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Maybe at the end, I have another question, because during your presentation, actually, you put that it is needed to provide support for innovation and digitalization. So, and you, on a previous question, actually, you underlined that importance. And actually, during yesterday's presentation, we also heard a lot of destination positioning and branding, and actually how technology can change markets and travel demographic that you already mentioned. But I just want to put one concrete question. Actually, how IFC and World Bank, as you are representing them themselves now, will encourage them in your future work, very concretely?
I think this is a good opportunity to use the analogy of riding a bicycle. You have to learn how to ride a bicycle before you can start driving around the countryside. And in the case of technology in tourism, what we need is to work with enterprises to make sure they are fully comfortable with all of the technology and the opportunities that can provide them. And IFC looks to support that, both in terms of raising awareness as well as capacity building in a way that helps these enterprises be able to both understand what the opportunities are as well as be able to utilize them. So I think this is an area of support that we look to provide going forward, because it helps the whole sector as well as the overall business environment throughout the country. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. And we are at the end of this session. I will use this opportunity to thanks to Hannah, to thanks to Ibrahim, to thanks to all participants during this 2 days webinar on behalf of Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations. And I really, really hope that all of us here, both panelists and local experts that participated during this session, will continue cooperating in future, implementing this project that actually we yesterday officially launched, and that this is a start of that good cooperation in the future. And I really want to take this opportunity to thanks to all those who actually followed us through all networks and all audience for all their questions. And I really hope that we together with this project will help and assist to reply on all raised questions during this 2 days webinar. Ibrahim, are you there? Yes, you are there. Thank you again.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Hannah, wonderful seeing you. Thank you for your time, your expertise. I know we can always lean on you, and you always have great wisdom to share with us. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Now, don't jump off too quick, because we're going to show another fabulous video about Via Dinarica. It's perhaps the flagship nature offer here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And now I'm supposed to say a bit more to waste time to allow the team to load the video. Here it is.